forgiving doesn't necessarily mean you agree or you condone. It doesn't have to mean any of those things. But the distinction I make is like forgiveness was only one step, right? Finally, the goal to me was setting my parents free and setting myself free. And I don't know how to describe that in any other way, but it was this letting go of, okay, like I let that all go now. I'm complete with that. And really I did that for myself more than anything.
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm Makena Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Hello,
Welcome. Hello. Now you say welcome.
welcome.
Okay, good.
We are back with another episode that I am very excited to talk about because this is something that, again, we've mentioned I'm working on our book right now, and it actually became a chapter in the book. And it's really about kind of people, I call it in the book right now, it may change, but healing the mother wound and healing the father wound, because that's language that's become more popular around this. But it's really about like those experiences from our childhood that hold us, or people often feel like as they dive into their healing, things that maybe hold you back, or you go, oh my gosh, this is why I am the way I am, or my parents always told me this. And so something you really taught me, Gigi, which is sort of the premise of this episode and why we wanted to share, is that it is possible to do your healing and then ultimately to be healed and to be free.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I've witnessed that from my own experience, and I've witnessed that through a lot of the people I've worked with through my career. And yeah, I mean, you, Makena, have done such an amazing job at going out and really going into the healing and working on yourself in such a way, and to, let go of things, right?
Yeah, it's been
which takes a
definitely
lot
a
of
journey.
courage. Yeah.
And like I write about in the book, it was a very different experience. I mean, I'm focusing on the father and the mother. It could be any kind of experiences from your childhood, but with my father having a very different kind of relationship, or not having really a relationship at this point in my life by choice. And then with you being really in, connection and communication the whole time, there was still healing I had to do around your and my relationship, and things I had to forgive you for, or wanted to forgive you for and let go of, or, just things that I was unconsciously playing out, old patterns, or holding against you. And it took years to kind of unwind all of that. And the processes, like I said, were very different. But, we teach some processes with our clients around this. But really, again, it is just to say that both are really important, the healing part and the ultimately, I don't know if it's a decision that you're free, or it's a place that you come to. I think in some ways it is a choice at some point that you are complete.
It is a choice from what I've seen with people, because I've worked with people on this a lot. And that's what I say is finally, and then for my own too, with my parents, in my early 30s, I didn't have so much trauma or so much things, but the stories or the pain or the things where I felt my parents let me down or things they did, I let go of all of that. And I made a choice early on in my life to just not replay those anymore and to let go. I wrote an article about it years ago. Said, give your parents a break, because, I had no idea what my parents were going through when I had these different experiences with them, right? And I had no idea about their movie. And I chose to finally say, it doesn't mean I have to agree with what happened or maybe the things that hurt, but I chose to forgive and then to finally let them off the hook and let go. And I just want to say, I know there are a lot of people out there that have serious trauma and a lot of pain and very, terrible things that have happened to them. And we're not downplaying that. And we're not therapists, right? And I do highly encourage people, if they come to me and they do have a lot of things to work through, to go to a therapist and put that time in and really, really have a place where you can heal and have that time, because it's so, so, so important. So that's a conscious decision you have to make wherever you're sitting. So we're not downplaying that. And we're really, we might get some pushback on this. What we're doing is to say, to really dig down deep into it. And as you said, McKenna, like you did, is go on that healing journey if you can. And then finally, I, always tell my clients, I just had a client the other day and I said, how old are you now? And they were like in their late 50s. And I was like, are you really going to keep on taking that story into the rest of your life? Because when you do, it holds you. It holds you from truly living, and it holds you back from living your life completely, and they were like, you're so right about that. And for me, I've had many, many, many people finally choose, okay, I'm done. I don't agree, and I forgive. And of course I don't forget. I mean, it's still in the patterns in me, but I do believe I've seen this in you, McKenna, and sorry, I'll let you talk in a minute, but I see when people finally do make that decision or choice, that all of a sudden things unravel in a certain way, that those stories don't keep on showing up in you. Yeah. You get glimpses sometimes, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so much in what you just shared that I want to touch on. I think one thing is, like you said, is that, the trauma may be very real, or the challenges, the terrible things that you went through, or that your parents said to you, or other people in your life. I mean, people go through a lot. We all have, and to varying degrees, some more than others. And so I do think that there is this stage of, call it the healing stage, and sometimes that, like I write about in the book, like you need to be angry, and sometimes you need to grieve. And there's a lot of stages of grief, as we know. And so in that, you can absolutely go in and do that, have that phase, right? Find the healers, find the therapists, dig deep, let yourself be angry, let yourself feel righteous, or feel like you are the victim in the story. And it just depends. There's no set amount of time for that. But I think even when you're going through that, there could be a sort of meta awareness that, it's like you're in the healing and you're in the anger or whatever the emotions are, but there can also be like a part of you that pops out sometimes and goes like, okay, this is something I'm doing for a time, right? Mm-hmm. To really feel it, to, express it if I need to, or do whatever I need to do around this. And there will come a time where I'm going to choose a different story, or where I'm really going to let this go. I think even just having that awareness can be really powerful. So you're not fully collapsed into the story, or the trauma, or whatever it is. And, I said that to someone the other day, a friend of mine that I'm close to. I just said, I get that where you're sitting right now, they've done a lot of healing and a lot of growth around these kinds of things from their childhood. And I said, maybe you're in a chapter where we've unearthed a new level you have. And at the same time, that's great. But there will come a time where I think you're going to want to choose a different story, basically, to not be the victim of your story, but to actually instead have your story be the reason, or the things that you went through be the reason that you are the person you are today. Or if you really want to create something in your life, in your world, let's say it's a certain level of success, that your story or what you went through, you reframe it as the reason you created that success instead of the reason that stopped you. I don't know if
And
that
I
makes
love
sense.
that. I love that you said that. And that is so profound. And because you said also, otherwise you're giving your power away. And
Yeah.
that's such a great distinction because that's so, so true. Every time we replay and we replay and we replay after we've done the healing, then we give our power away. We can't fully, that's what I said to this client, you can't fully live your life. You're living through this filter of you've been done wrong and and then there's resistance, and resistance just creates attraction, right? You're going to keep on feeling and to finally go, I'm going to be at peace with this. And I do believe that we all have the human capability to do that. I do believe that that is our capability. And it takes an enormous amount of courage to do that, and just taking an ownership for who you are and how you're going to live your life, but not in resistance even. I know that with my kids, we lived a very, in many ways, unstable, all over the place, traveling and crazy life. And that's the reason why many of you are so grounded now, right? Because you chose something different. And I can feel bad about that, which, of course, I had my times where I had guilt, and then I had to let go of it. That is part of the reason why I pioneered what I did. That's part of the reason why you guys have certain kind of spirit that you have. And for one kid, it was amazing. For another kid, it was traumatic. And there's no way for me to navigate that with 5 people. Yeah, 5 children. There's just no way. And so in that you choose to make it, like you said, the reason why you are doing things different, but not even in resistance. It's just the choice of you're going to do things different.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because how many stories have you heard, you, the listener, of people who had terrible childhoods, who had all kinds of things that happened to them, and they rose above it, or they created in spite of it, or because of it. Mm-hmm. And then you hear the opposite, of people who just spiral in that forever. And again, there's no right or wrong about any of it. It's just, what do you want to choose? Do you want to really choose to, and again, I will say there may be a time in your healing journey where it feels really good to be the victim for a while. Yeah. So I'm not making that wrong either. Like, you may really need to go like, yeah, this happened to me. It was terrible. This is why I am the way I am. This is why I haven't been able to do the things I want to do. Like, right on. Feel that way for a time. But again, have that meta awareness, or even if you want to put a timeline on it, be like, I'm going to take a year to really be doing my healing and to feel bad and to whatever, and let this really kind of take me off track if it has to, or whatever. And then I'm going to make a different choice and create some sort of line in the sand, or you make a little ritual for yourself, or whatever that is that has you say, from this point forward, I'm going to write a different story. I'm going to tell a different story. I'm going to see this in a different light. And, one of our recent episodes was about the power of decision. I think this really plays into that. You can make a different decision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. And even though it might feel really, really difficult to do, and that's why we have an exercise. What's the name of it now, Makena?
The releasing ritual.
It was changed, right? So yes, so we have an exercise, and we can connect that to this episode, right?
I'm going to look and see if I have the link, and if not, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
We shared it in a recent episode. So this is a really powerful exercise, and it's one that we also talk about in the book. Mm-hmm. Do you want to share a little bit about it?
Yeah. So it's an opportunity to look at all the ways you feel hurt, you have resentment, you have disappointment, you feel misunderstood, and all these things that are in your mind. I mean, the anger and everything, and to be able to purge it onto paper fully. And we have a very clear process you go through to make sure that you fully feel and let it all out and then let go of it. And we have a process on a way to do that. And again, this has been pivotal in our coaching over the years, of when people do this and they come out the other side, and it's just like this huge relief, this big tons off your shoulders. And I said, in our last episode, or in one of our episodes, about when I went to Bali, and part of my process was to practice this letting go. And that was one of the things I did, an activity with a high priestess. I did this water blessing. And that in that process, I felt I let go of so much stuff, like stuff I was still holding on to, things where I felt, anger or disappointment. And when I left there, I felt like, oh my gosh, like a huge weight came off my shoulders. And that's how people feel when they do this process. Because when you no longer give your power away like that, what you do is you become empowered. You become empowered. You have freedom to design and create your life the way you want to it, not because you're resisting the way somebody didn't do or something didn't happen that affected you as a child. And that's when you truly start to create and empower yourself in your life and design your life the way you want to.
Absolutely. Yeah, the releasing ritual can be done in different ways, but the way we're talking about doing it here around your childhood is to really go back into all the old stuff, right? Is to really, we describe it in the video and the worksheet that you'll get, which you can get, by the way, at www.wayofthemuse.com/letting go. So wayofthemuse.com/letting go. We'll walk you through it. And, it takes some time. You need to set some time aside to really do it and get some privacy. We talk you through all of that. But, this version of the exercise would be to really do it around all the stuff from your childhood and all the old resentments and hurts and pains and everything that you're holding on to. And that is a huge one. It can be such a letting go for people. And then I will say that there's different ways you can use this exercise as you move forward. If you have a lot of frustration and resentment built up in your relationship, you could do it around that. If you had a situation with some, falling out with friends, or if some of our clients just do it once a year to just clear out anything. Yeah, I do it about once a year as well. Mm-hmm. To just clear out anything that's built up, all those frustrations, again, like Gigi said, resentments, things that are, what would you say, swimming around inside of us, and to really make the conscious choice to first emote, as you call it, feel the emotion and let yourself cry and let yourself be upset about it all. And then to shift your perspective and to make a different choice. And people often say, well, it can't be that simple. What do you say to someone around that? Because again, we are saying first, if you feel like you need therapy, if you feel like you need other modalities, do that too. This might be something you do toward the tail end of some of that work, to really kind of draw that line in the sand. I think that's what this exercise is really powerful for. But yeah, if somebody's really done a lot of healing, let's say they've, been on their healing journey for 5 years or 10 years, and they've been doing different things, and they come to this exercise and they go, well, it can't be that simple. So what would you say, Gigi?
Can I say it on the podcast?
I don't know.
I say,
putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I say, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yeah. I've watched.
It's a choice.
Tons of people do it. Yeah. Tons of people do it. And it is a choice finally. And again, you don't want to feel bad if you're not there yet. That is so okay. We're just saying, if you are there or you're a little tired of it, then this is a new way of trying to shift it. Maybe you've tried everything else, and now why don't you just try finally, I'm going to make a decision, and when those thoughts come up again, I'm going to set them aside. And instead, I'm going to choose, what do I want to do in my life? Who am I? Who am I? How do I want to create my life? Not from because of my pain, but because of my desires. What do I want now? How do I choose to
Yeah.
live?
And this is not a forgiveness exercise necessarily, though forgiveness is very powerful, and it is something I talk about in the book. But I think a lot of focus is put on forgiveness. And like you said, that can be an important part of the healing journey. And forgiving doesn't necessarily mean you agree or you condone. It doesn't have to mean any of those things. But the distinction I make in the book, I wrote at one point, is like forgiveness was only one step, right? Finally, the goal to me was setting my parents free and setting myself free. And I don't know how to describe that in any other way, but it was this letting go of, okay, like I let that all go now. I'm complete with that. And really I did that for myself more than anything. Of course, it's great to have that, you know. In the case with my father, I did that without him being a part of that process at all. In the case with you were more actively in that, and I had stages or times where I said, okay, I'm really consciously letting this go, or and then some of it I did on my own without you knowing about it too. So it doesn't really matter if the other person is a participant in this. But just to say that to me, that was more the goal, was this feeling of freedom versus just forgiveness, which is also extremely powerful. And the way that I knew, like, for example, that I'd done my healing around my father was when my husband walked into my life, and was such a different kind of energy. And so much of the time we play out patterns. This is a cliche, but it's also true. If we don't heal and transmute or let something go, then we'll play those patterns out in other places in our life because we're trying to get the healing. We're trying to get the conclusion, right? So yeah, that's just, I think, again, to know that that's possible. And it is a decision that you make ultimately.
And I think it's great for you to share, like, that freedom for me in my early 30s just gave me so much space again to create the life that I wanted to create. And I, created a life completely different from my parents. And of course, I took on the things that I loved about them, and the things that are me that I loved. But it gave me this opportunity to, I always throw mama from the brain or throw dad from the brain, if you've got this stuff constantly going, well, my father would think this or my mother would think that. And so I had freedom to create what I wanted. And I think you should share too, Makena, doing that. What has that freedom done for you in your life? The other thing that it let me do, I'm going to say one more thing, is it let me love my parents in such a way that I had such a great relationship with my parents, in a way that I accepted them and enjoyed them. They were fun people. I didn't go in constantly with the story about them. And yeah, it was just a great way to then relate to my parents through my life for the rest of their lives. Yeah. So yeah, when they pass, of course there are little things here and there, but when they pass, I have no regret or bad feeling about my parents at all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely gives you a sense of peace, and just a settled feeling around all of that, that it's like, there's not that, I don't feel triggered, as, of course we trigger each other, you and I sometimes. We're in a relationship with each other, and we are mother-daughter, and we're in business together. But I just mean, old stuff doesn't come up so much anymore to trigger me. It's it's more in the moment if something happens. I'm not holding kind of those old stories. So freedom is partially just not having those triggers coming up all the time in the same way, because I'm not holding an old story, or I'm not thinking you should have done something different, or whatever. What else has it really given me? I think, like you said, it's this kind of feeling of space, of almost a blank canvas of I get to create my life. both, I say, in spite of and because of the way that I was raised or the things that happened to me or whatever it might be. So it is that feeling of like ownership and, yeah, and that there's no one else to sort of blame, but there's huge power in that, is that there's when what I create and when I create is, yes, I honor where I came from, but it's also like I'm creating that, I'm the one taking charge and taking the power to really move things forward. And there was something you said, Gigi, about with your parents that reminded me of an exercise. It's so funny because I remember you and I did this exercise almost around the same time. I'm pretty sure you told me, and we completely came to it separately. We have no idea how that happened. But a couple of years ago, one of the things I did was I did a writing process where I said, here's all the things that I like love about, let's say you, my mother, or my father. Here's all the things I want to carry forward with me. And then here's the things that I'm complete with and I'm not available for. And that was really powerful, similar to kind of an exercise we shared in the episode about decision making, was like, what am I no longer available for? That too was like, okay, I'm honoring the parts that are great and that I really want. And then I'm sort of drawing this line in the sand to say, I'm not available for this in my life moving forward. I'm going to choose a different way. So not from, again, a place of like resistance or, oh, I don't want to be like my mother or something like that, but really from this place of just like ownership and clarity in myself about what I'm choosing in my life.
So funny when you're talking about, I remember that now. I remember I journaled about it. I remember I have it in a journal. And we did it
literally within a matter of weeks of each other. We I brought it up and you brought it up and we were like, how did we come up with the same
so funny
thing?
So funny. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're on a similar wavelength there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, the healing can happen while you're in relationship with your parent. It can happen if they've passed. It can happen, with other people in your childhood. There's a lot of different lenses on this. Anything else you want to share, Gigi?
No, I don't think so. I just think, as we said here, get curious about it and know that the heaviness you feel can be lifted off. It can no longer be like a burden in you. And it can actually, on the side of it, like McKenna said, it can really be a freedom. And you get to choose your creating, and as a parent, I made a lot of mistakes with my kids. And so on the other side of that, I think it's so important for a parent too, because I had a lot of guilt and a lot of things to clean up, because especially with 5 kids, as you can imagine, and the life I've lived, to finally also process and get through my guilt and to be able to let that go. And it rears its head every once in a while, but mostly I choose not to have that guilt anymore. Yeah. And I think that's also very, very important too. Yeah.
And I would
peace with ourselves.
I would really recommend on that note, if that strikes a chord for anyone listening, if you are a parent, we have an episode on mom guilt that we did a while back, and we will link that in the show notes as well, or you can look back for it. That's a really powerful one to talk about the other side, which is what happens when your kids are probably grown or maybe not even grown yet, and they're bringing all this stuff to you and saying, well, you did this and you did that. And probably a lot of it's true, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. I'm about to have my baby, and I'm sure she's going to have all kinds of things. And how do you navigate that as a parent and yourself is the other side, because you were probably doing the best you could do at that time.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening. We so appreciate you coming back, listening to us, and hopefully this can be a service to those of you who are out there that maybe are carrying things, and we'd love it so much if you get the relief. Share it with us. Tell us what happens. Yeah,
you can email us at support@wayofthemuse.com or Gigi pointed out to me, I didn't know this was possible. If you listen on Spotify or YouTube, I knew, but Spotify, you can comment. So that's why she's always talking about commenting. I'm like, what are these comments we're talking about here? So you can comment.
The great things you got from the episode. Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you. Yes. So thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
All right. Thank you, Makena.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.